Well, this morning, I come to you a little disjointed, a little scatterbrained, and so hopefully I can make this all make sense. Growing up, I was a member of the Boy Scouts, and one of the things that we learned to do, among many other things, was how to start a fire. And thinking back to it, I don't know what the leaders were thinking. You get a bunch of 9-year-olds out there and you teach them how to make fire. That seems like a really bad idea. But you also teach them how to do it responsibly and how to do it for a purpose and how to make sure that you're being safe as you do it. And one of the things that we learned was you can't light a log on fire with a match, at least not initially. You got to start small and work your way up. You've got to start with kindling. To start a fire, you need 3 things. You need fuel, you need air, and you need a spark. If you don't have those 3 things, no matter how hard you try, you're not going to have a fire. You have to have those 3 things: fuel, air, and a spark. If you've got air and a spark, you don't have fire. You just have a spark. If you have fuel and air, but no spark, you don't have a fire. And if you have fuel and you have spark, but you have no air, you have no fire. All 3 are necessary. Well, as we would go out onto these campouts, and it seemed like everyone would play this game of who was going to get out of their tent first in the morning, because nobody wanted to be the one to have to start the fire but me. I was fine with being the one to start the fire. And so I'd wake up and the sun was barely cracking over the horizon, and I didn't see any point in laying there in my tent on the hard, cold ground. It didn't make any sense to me. I might as well get up and get moving. And so I would get out of the tent and I would go and I would start the fire. It didn't take me very long to learn that you can't put it all on at once. You have these beautiful building ideas of how you're going to build this fire, and you put the kindling down, and then you put the little bit bigger, and then you put the little bit bigger, and then you put the big stuff around the outside, right? And then you light it, and it's fire, right? No. Do you know why? Because it can't breathe. They teach you the structure so that you know what to do next. But you can't start with the whole thing. You take your kindling and you sit it there, and you get the spark in it, and you might have to blow on it for a minute to get the fire started. You don't want to hold fire for very long, by the way. I don't know if you know that. I learned the hard way. You don't want to hold fire like this for very long. You get a spark, and then you put it down, or you're going to get burned. You put it down, and then you start putting the little stuff around it. And you might have to keep blowing on it to get it stirred up. It's not until you've got a good burning fire that you can start adding bigger stuff and bigger stuff, and eventually, yes, you can start putting logs on the fire. In some ways, I think we approach theology the wrong way. We come at it and we think, throw all of the meat at them right away. If I were trying to teach my kid, I've done that, by the way. I've tried to teach the little ones about some really deep theological concepts. Emily was trying to teach about the Trinity. Who here knows how to explain the Trinity to an adult? Now let's amplify that. Who here knows how to explain the Trinity to a child? You take this really complex idea and try to distill it down. Boy, that's hard. That's hard. But what about to keep a fire going? What happens, for instance, so before we go to bed, we were told to put the fire cold out. So you dump water on it, and dump water on it, and dump water on it. It takes a bit. You have to keep dumping until you can touch your hand to the ground. Okay, then I got older and joined the military, and they were like, don't ever let a fire go all the way out. That's dumb. You have a fire guard. You have somebody who's watching the fire, and you add stuff to it throughout the night. No, you don't want this big blazing roaring thing because you're going to give away your position. But you want to keep it going so that you've got coals. Sometimes you can even cover over it so that there's no light coming from it. But in the morning you dig it out and there's still hot coals underneath. It's a whole lot easier to get a fire going when you've got hot coals. Do any of you feel like you've had moments in your faith where you didn't have a raging fire going anymore? You were just coals? Just maybe a burning ember? And you've had those moments where you wished that the fire would flame up again? I've had those moments. I've had those moments recently. The enemy's going to do everything he can to quench that. He's going to try to stomp it out. He's going to try to put it out. That's why we need each other. But that's another sermon for another day. Well, today we're going to look at a church in the New Testament who had been going through some hard times. They'd lost a lot of their members. A lot of their people had died, gone on to be with the Lord, but they were left without them. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? We've lost quite a few. And we can look around and we sometimes wonder. Not so much this morning. We've got quite a few here this morning. There are some mornings when we're like, what's going to happen? I'm here to challenge you. Don't lose hope. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, we're going to start with verse 13 and we're going to read through 5:11. And it's my hope, my goal, that this will stir us up, that this will reignite our passion, our flame. 1 Thessalonians, easy for me to say. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly, as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all children of the light and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or to the darkness. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober, putting on faith and love as a breastplate, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. He died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. The church of Thessalonica had lost people very dear to them. And they were tired. They were weary. And their hope was not absent, but it was dwindling. Remember, the apostles believed that Jesus' return was imminent, meaning it could happen at any time. They were waiting. They were watching. They were hoping. Have you ever felt like you've been waiting and watching and hoping for an awfully long time? I know that when my grandfather was not doing well, when he was sick, I thought, Lord Jesus, if you would return and take us all, and Grandpa wouldn't have to suffer anymore, and we wouldn't have to suffer anymore, and we could be with you forever. That would just be marvelous. That wasn't God's plan. He took my grandfather, and here I am. And that was hard. It was hard. And yet we know that the Lord's return is closer than it was in the days of the church of Thessalonica, than it was in the days of the apostles. It could happen at any moment. And so we watch hopefully, we wait hopefully, we wait expectantly. And yet, he tarries. I long to be with my Lord fully, completely. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Just a little longer. Always just a little longer. And yet we also have to remember that we are being trained. When I joined the United States Army at the age of 17, the moment I signed those papers in Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri, I don't even know where I was. I know I was in Kansas City. The moment I signed those papers, I belonged to the Army. I was a soldier. I was untrained, but I was a soldier. From that moment. And then we went to basic training. Boy, let me tell you, I sure wished the Lord would return then. It hurt. It was painful. Oh, there were days I didn't know that I'd make it another 10 yards, let alone 10 minutes. It was hard. It was painful. But I was being trained for something. I was trained to be a soldier. And it didn't happen like that overnight. I was being strengthened. I was being taught. 16 weeks. 8 weeks at basic training. 8 more weeks at AIT. I tell you what, that was a long 16 weeks, and it was even split up. My 8 weeks of basic training happened between my junior and senior years of high school. And then I got to go back and be at high school for a year. And then I went to AIT for 8 more weeks. And there was training in the meantime. And it hurt, and it was painful, and I didn't want to keep going. And I had moments that I thought, what have I done to myself? What am I going through this for? I chose this? That was dumb. But at the end of the 16 weeks, I was then what they call a fully trained soldier. I was a 92 Yankee, supply specialist in armor. I knew how to disassemble an M16 faster than the kids at basic training. And I knew how to fix things. They didn't know how to fix things. That was my job. I learned how to disassemble a lot of weaponry. And it was preparing me for the role that I was to fulfill in the United States Army. If it took 16 weeks for 8 years of service, that began the day that I signed that contract in Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, wherever it was. If I was being trained for 16 weeks for 8 years of service, how much longer must we be trained to be members of the kingdom of our God for an eternity? We are preparing for eternity, folks. And some people get it quicker and they get to go be with Jesus sooner. And some of us, it takes all of us our full life. For some of us, that's longer than others. And that's okay. That's okay. I think of Beth. I think of Marilyn. I think of the others who have gone on to be with our King. They were ready. They were ready. And the Lord said, your training is finished. Come home. Let's go. It's time to be fully in the kingdom. In the meantime, the rest of us are being trained. We're being prepared for a greater role in the kingdom. But our current role is that of ambassador. We look forward to the day that the Lord calls us home, to the resurrection. We look forward to that day when we are reunited with those who have gone on before, who have taken up their full role in the kingdom. Lord, quickly let it come. Because I have days when I don't know that I can make it another day. And he looks at me and he says, yes, you can, with my help. You're not done. You're not done training. Keep going. Don't quit. Don't give up hope, because the day will be here soon. We look forward to the resurrection. We look forward to Christ's return. Some will be resurrected after their body gives way and this form dies. Others of us will be resurrected in an instant as we are going about our everyday lives, living as members of the kingdom. We're going to step from this reality to that one in an instant, in the blink of an eye. None of us knows when that will happen. But we look forward to it, and we do not give up hope. This isn't, and I've told you guys this before, this isn't the I hope that I will have a chance to go whatever. I hope I'll get a chance to go see my grandmother in the next 2 weeks. So I'll make plans toward that end, right? It's not quite the same. This hope is a firm, solid assurance that it's coming. I may or may not make it down to see my grandma in the next 2 weeks. I hope I do. There, I use that word. I hope I do. But if I don't, it'll be okay. That's not what we're talking about here. This hope is saying, I hope for the kingdom to come, and it will. It will. I don't know how long it will be, but it will come. It is sure. It will happen. And we look forward to that day. We also look forward to the Lord's full and final return when his kingdom overrides all of the kingdoms of this planet, all of the kingdoms of this world. Do any of you look forward to that day? I hope that all of you do. That is what ultimately we are looking forward to and what we are being trained toward. And yes, there are going to be things in this life that are painful. God uses pain in our lives to teach us patience, to teach us kindness, to teach us all of those things that have been defined as fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. We are being trained in the ways of our King. And it's a painful road. How many of you right this moment could drop to the ground and do 10 push-ups? Not me. When I was in the United States Army, we went through basic training and we had to do push-ups upon push-ups upon push-ups upon push-ups. I was so sick of doing push-ups. At just that moment that I thought I couldn't do more, they said, do it and do another one. Funny story, and I am recording this and I'm going to put it on the internet, so sis, I'm telling on you. So when I was in basic training, we got mail. Every day they would do mail call, and the first week of basic training, you had to do 10 push-ups for each piece of mail. The second week, you had to do 20 push-ups for each piece of mail. The third week, 30, so on and so forth. So by week 8, you were doing 80 push-ups for each piece of mail. Right? Well, guess what? I didn't get any mail until week 8. You guessed it, week 8. And I got 4 or 5 pieces of mail. So 5 times 8, you do the math, 400 push-ups. That's not it. That's not the end. Because one of those pieces of mail came from my sister. And it was an envelope about like so. And she had put star stickers all over the back side of this envelope. And one set of these stickers had been made into a smiley face. It gets better. Sis, you kill me. So, not only did she put a smiley face with star stickers on it, but then she had felt the need to write on the envelope with an arrow pointing at it, "This is a smiley face." Drill sergeant pulls out the piece of mail. What? Harkness. Do you see this envelope? Privates, do you see this envelope? He holds it up, shows. Oh, dear God. And he begins to look at it, and he begins to count. My sister had generously, graciously used an entire pack of 50 star stickers on that envelope. But it gets better because, of course, then the drill sergeant reads, this is a smiley face. Privates, I feel like my intelligence has been insulted. I can tell that this is a smiley face. What should we do? How many stickers are on it, drill sergeant? There are 50 stickers on this piece of mail. Privates, he should do 50 more push-ups just because of the stars. Who did the math earlier? 400, right? 50 more. I had to do 450 push-ups for that mail. Thanks, sis. 450 push-ups. Do you think my troubles were light and momentary? I sure didn't feel like it at that moment. And yet Paul reminds us that everything we go through, the pain of push-ups, the pain of loss, the pain of persecution even the pain of death, he calls it light and momentary in comparison with what is yet to come. Is that good news? That's not just a little bit of good news. Because I tell you what, I have days when I feel like the enemy is right there saying, do another push-up. Do another one, and another one, and another one. I can't keep going. And Jesus says, yes, you can.